could we bring it back? God, the Midwest, especially up there, not just Ohio, not the other areas, but up there past Chicago, it needs a festival. And it was such a major part of us growing up. And you can ask Opeth, you can ask In Flames, you can ask Shadows Fall, you can ask Hatebreed, you can ask, I mean, I can go down the list. It was like where if you could have a good show at Milwaukee Metal Fest or even get booked on Milwaukee Metal Fest, you could make it anywhere in the world.
Right.
And Enslaved will tell you that. Amon Amarth. I mean, we could go down the list.
Kindness ends, weakness dies. Trust myself, no one else, never.
If my voice has gone a little bit, it's because I was at the Leafs game last night. Yeah.
Nice. Did they win?
They did. Series is 2-0 against Ottawa right now, so it's just the Battle of Ontario. So none of you guys care about this at this point.
Very cool.
Awesome. All right.
I got to get into hockey. I try every year.
So that's an interesting thing. You on paper, like a guy like Jamey Jasta of a hardcore legend, you would think that hockey is all of your stuff, but somehow that's never been the case.
Just after I got into watching UFC in the mid '90s, I was like, yeah, if I'm going to watch people fight, I'm just going to watch them actually just fight. but I go through phases. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was a big Rangers fan, and it was crushing. And yeah, now I'm like, I'll watch the Blackhawks, I'll watch the Leafs, I'll watch that. And people they don't want to hear you. Sports beef goes so deep,
right?
That even if you're just a casual and you like a team, especially we lost the Whalers, so it was hard. Once we lost the Whalers, it was like, okay, now you got to like the Rangers, and even then, you kind of felt like almost like you were betraying your state or your friends. But yeah, I need to. Every year I try. Like this year, I was trying to get into baseball. But then I just keep going back to just because I feel like everybody just wants to fight anyway. So just go in the UFC and actually fight.
I am become instinctive. I am become instinctive.
What I hear you say is like if you want to do something, really just go full force for it. And maybe that's a good like metaphor for the last 20, 30 years now for you. You are one, I don't want to, polish your ego too much, but, you are one of the hardest working people in this scene. And I think it was...
Well, thanks.
I think when it was like your 700th podcast episode or something like that, which is already an insane milestone. And then I think you said like, you're finishing at that point also like the new Jasta album. There was a 30th anniversary tour with Hatebreed at the time coming up. You're obviously then also doing Milwaukee Metal Fest. And then you ended that podcast with like, oh, and I've got so many big things planned. And it's like, oh, besides all of these things, we just go. So are you just kind of like a bit of I think you also mentioned like, oh, the podcast, I love it because it gives me structure in between the crazy, like without just that little bit of, structure, would you be an insane loose cannon? Like, do you really need that?
Yeah, for sure. I think with diet and exercise and a little bit of supplementation, like I've been really into the supplementation lately, doing creatine and methylated B vitamins and taking my magnesium for, before bed and stuff. I think that's helped me with the addictive personality. I want to get addicted to good stuff. I wish it was exercise. I'm really trying right now.
Right.
But I just hate it. When you're on tour, you get an hour or maybe a little bit longer of cardio a night,
right?
Which is helpful. And then I think also just the vocal muscle it's mental and physical, especially like you said, doing the podcast and having that structure. It will keep me from diving into the dark river, which is always there. And in the music industry,
right,
it's very easy. Well, I think in regular life, it's very easy too, because we're constantly inundated. I don't want to get too preachy right out of the gate, but we're constantly inundated with advertisements for nicotine and alcohol and sex and porn. And I don't want any of that. in my life. None of it, because it turns destructive. And music is my way of abstaining from all of that. But then also, I think, there's also a balance you need with the work, because work can become destructive. And my daughters complained about that, and my wife and others in my life have said, that now it's like workaholism. So yeah, I'm going to dial it back definitely for 2026. We're so close to hitting our ticket goal for Milwaukee Metal Fest. If we hit our ticket goal before the fest, there's a good chance we could announce the weekend and maybe even a couple of the bands for 2026, which I would love to do. And I've been saying this to a lot of the bands I've been talking to about playing 2026, which is, it's not my festival, it's their festival, especially the locals and the regionals. I just happen to love it when I was a kid, and it became imprinted on me. And it's one of those things where that felt like a good fascination, a good fixation, so to speak. And it was always in the back of my mind, could we bring it back? God, the Midwest, especially up there, not just Ohio, not the other areas, but up there past Chicago, it needs a festival. And it was such a major part of us growing up. And you can ask Opeth, you can ask In Flames, you can ask Shadows Fall, you can ask Hatebreed, you can ask, I can go down the list. It was like where if you could have a good show at Milwaukee Metal Fest, or even get booked on Milwaukee Metal Fest, you could make it anywhere in the world.
Right.
And Enslaved will tell you that. Amon Amarth. We could go down the list of legendary bands, and even people who are famous in other genres know about Milwaukee Metal Fest. But yeah, it's one thing to take a task on like that. It's another thing to have it completely destroy your sleep schedule, your life, your body. So yeah. So will I dial it back next year? Yes, because all this work can become destructive, but the podcast, I just need more consistency with it right now. And I hate when it's great to stop listening to music when you have to go record, and it's great to not have that outside influence, but then I lose that social ability, and I lose that sticking to a schedule. And that's kind of the chaos of making music, making an album, is you either have it or you don't. Like the people who are making, many of us have all made low budget records, and that's like, get in and get out. You can't go over budget. But then you don't have that creative, you might not have that creative freedom.
Yeah.
But sometimes the creative freedom can also become, then you end up like with the Chinese democracy type of situation.
Like a savage, barbaric, I have become instinctive. Come with me down the abyss.
You said one thing that I want to touch on before we can focus fully on the fest, but also look a little bit on, a 1-year anniversary of the latest Jasta album and all the stuff that you're doing. But you said like, well, in the real world, it's also, you have those dark or black rivers as well to jump in. But in the music in the music scene, they're there. There was maybe a long time that it was not even less stigma against those rivers, but almost kind of like expected from rock stars to jump into the Black River. That also seems to have changed quite a bit. Just from talking to artists and interviewing nonstop artists, how do you see, like, there's a lot of objectively shitty behavior that was accepted and often celebrated in the past that nowadays behind the scenes really isn't anymore. Being an asshole is no longer an asset, if you will, in this industry, even if sometimes the fans don't get to see the behind the scenes stuff. How have you kind of, experienced that change in the music industry? Because these Black Rivers right now, they're not so cool anymore.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we've experienced it so close to home to the point where it's like, it's almost soul crushing. I was talking to Kirk this morning. He just had his 60th, and I was talking about Pete Steele and going to Pete Steele's funeral and just looking at him lying there with it wasn't him anymore. It was like, it was just a vessel. It was just a body. And I thought, this is not how it was supposed to go. This is not how it's supposed to be. Like Peter Steele was supposed to be like Lemmy, and or even longer. You know, he's a big, strong guy, but it'll get you. It'll get anybody. Like, we're not invincible. And so it was emotional talking to Kirk because and I think when we did end up starting to record the podcast, we might have talked a little bit of it publicly on the podcast too, where we just said, if you had asked us back in 2005, 2006, whenever we were recording the first version of the first Kingdom of Sorrow album, which never saw the light of day because it was so bad, because we could barely play. We had acid reflux. Our voices were shot. We were doing all sorts of bad things we weren't supposed to be doing. If you had asked me and him then, would he make it to 60 and would I make it to even like 40? We would have said hell no.
Right.
But and shout out to Wayne from Hatebreed, because he just told me that I'm actually 47. I thought I was 48 this whole year, so he gave me a year of my life back. I swear to God. My mother calls it time, or was my mom, or was my sister? One of them calls it time blindness.
Okay.
I have that where I don't know. I just don't think of things in a time situation. But back then, there was a note that Kirk showed me from Dimebag for one of his birthdays where it was like, imagine doing this when we're 50.
Right.
And now he's 60. So, but there's other examples recently that are also kind of equally as sad. They're all sad. All the examples are sad. Seth Binzer from Crazy Town, you know, whether you liked his music or not, the writing was on the wall. You know, Scott Weiland. I remember standing there in DC waiting for him to show up for Headbangers Ball. We got the camera crew there. Slash is standing there. Duff is standing there. Shout out to Duff. I just saw Duff the other night. And he's one of the examples that I look up to, and that I try him, D. Snyder, Scott Ian. You know, Scott's 60 or over 60 now. I think he's in way better shape than me. All these guys and girls that are out there that are healthy, that are providing for their families, and that were smart with their investments and smart with their time, and don't take shit and don't deal with, you know, any sort of, like you said, asshole behavior, because it really erodes. It eats away at the good parts of you that they don't deserve to eat away at. And so I was talking to Duff, and I didn't bring up that time with Scott Weiland where we're all standing there at the 930 Club in DC waiting to film an episode of Headbangers Ball, and he wasn't going to show. But the writing was on the wall then, and I'm not saying we could have done anything in that moment. I think you have to be reactive super early on. I mean, I think you have to be proactive super early on with people, and not reactive. I shouldn't say not reactive, less reactive and more proactive in the beginning of the warning signs. It's
easier to stop somebody from jumping in the river versus getting them out of the river, in a way.
Yeah, and there's a saying, like, in recovery, like I'm not some super deep recovery dude. I'm always saying, like, don't look to me as an example for that. I just don't drink. But there was a time where I had to go make amends and apologize to people, and some of the people, you know, wanted the apology, some didn't. But what I was gonna say was there's always an example. Even Trevor, you know, he was supposed to curate Milwaukee Metal Fest,
right?
And we did the episode. We got the lawyers involved. I paid the old owners. I paid the attorneys. I got the trademark. I got metalfest.com, and I'm texting him the whole time, like, excited, and he's not hitting me back. And I knew something was wrong. And man, that was one of those that this will haunt me for the rest of my life. Where could I have been more proactive? Because not only did it throw me into this whirlwind of having to curate this festival, which he was the guy to do it. He would have done it way better than I could have ever done it. But it was also, then it was public, and the fans had heard it, and the episode got 80,000 downloads or something insane. And so I'm getting thousands of emails and tweets and messages saying, now you have to do it to honor Trevor. Right. So in one way, that was like the only silver lining of a really bad situation. And then when Black Dahlia hit the stage, I mean, it was hard to hold back tears. It was like, all right, there is, even in the worst possible situation, there is a little silver lining, and you have to grab onto that silver lining like it's a lifeline that's keeping you out of the dark river. You know what I mean?
Transforms into husk, must fulfill my slaughter lust. Transforms into husk.
You know, Metal Fest is now back. It is an established thing. It's eating up a lot of your time. You said like, oh, you know, we needed to have this again, and to have something be, you know, more West than Chicago. It deserved its thing as well, and things seem to be blooming now. That wasn't happening 10 years ago. Like you've got Metal Fest. There's obviously also, you know, very different kind of fests, but you've got Mad with Power, Blades of Steel happen as well. I don't think it's happening this year. A couple of other things.
It is.
Oh, it is? Okay. Great.
Yeah, and
great.
they got a great lineup. I think Warbringer's on it.
Right.
I know they had a couple cancellations.
September, I think, right?
Yeah, as did we. You know, everybody does. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lords of Trident and everybody that's been holding it down there for years. Like that was another thing. I'm an outsider, but I love the local scene, and there's something beautiful about spring and summer and in Wisconsin after the brutal winter. It's like a rebirth. It's like a new beginning, and it's hard to describe. I say everybody should go there and experience it.
Absolutely. There's this whole new, like, there's a weird festival scene, if you will, in the United States. You've got some of these massive festivals with Rockville and Aftershock and Sick New World when that happens.
That's done.
And right, and they don't seem to. I mean, and this is me maybe being biased, meaning growing up in Belgium. Like, you know, I went to 20 Grass Pops. Right, I think my first time seeing Hatebreed was Grass Pop 2003, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Those massive festivals in the States, to me, never seem to capture that Euro summer festival magic. But they've got this whole new, like, you know, I was just at Hell's Heroes as well. Again, very different festival than a Metal Fest. I mean, there is some overlap there. You know, 3 Inches of Blood could play both easily. Enslaved as well at this point. But so there's this whole new wind, or returning wind in some cases, of this like mid-sized, smaller, very community-based festival. Like, what's your... How is it that the US kind of grew that way, where it became so important to have like this community central, where in Europe, you know, everybody from all over the world goes to these massive festivals, but somehow they still kind of keep that family feeling, even there's 80,000 people at Wacken these days. It seems to be a very different mindset or mentality. Like, you've played on all these festivals, you've organized these festivals. How do you look at the difference between these regional festival scenes?
Well, it's needed, right? Because it's I guess, what is the word? Parity. You need healthy competition. We're never going to compete, obviously, with the Rockvilles and the Wimmer festivals, and we love playing those festivals. But for a fest like us, who I think we should have been the ones to have Acid Bath first. But at the same time, it's like, I know these guys have been slugging it out in the underground and doing their solo records and doing Goat Whore and you know, shout out to Shane. You know, he's in Crowbar, who I manage, and Shane's going to be playing bass in Acid Bath. So 28 years goes by, and I want them to get the biggest paydays possible. So I totally understand, but it's brutal for us as an independent fest, non-corporate fest, non-stadium fest, to be compared to a stadium fest with $500 tickets and Metallica headlining. And so it's almost flattering that they think we're at that level, but we're nowhere near. I mean, we're a ballroom, a club, and a bar with an outdoor patio and a nice little vendor area. But we look to the more underground festivals to try to have a balance of both, but it's not always possible with who's available and who's restricted by other contracts and radius clauses and exclusivity clauses. You mentioned Hell's Heroes, which I think is great because it's less about the headliners and more about the culture. I think they're a great blueprint. And if you want to look to the hardcore world, I think Sound and Fury is amazing as well, too, because, I mean, they don't even put the logos on the flyer. It's just about the festival and the culture that surrounds the festival. So you can read down, everybody's in alphabetical order or one font. And and that's very cool. But with us, because we're so close in the same weekend as Rockville and so close to Sonic Temple, we were in a really hard spot this year.
Right.
As much as I want to have and always will have the Doros and the Eternal Champions and the stuff that doesn't get the opportunity maybe to play the big stadium festivals, you also need the headliners. And as much as people, really, really laid into us for having, say, a headliner or headliners like Slaughter to Prevail and Avatar last year, that was actually our biggest night. That night did bigger than Lamb of God and Machine Head. That night did bigger than Mr. Bungle Testament and Hatebreed. It did bigger than Blind Guardian. And so, you want to be like, you want to emulate someone like Hell's Heroes because they say who's a headliner and who isn't. If I go to my partners and say, hey, I want Abath, or do you say Abath or do you say Abath?
I guess it depends on who I'm talking to.
If I say I want Abath and Saxon, they go that no way. But Hell's Heroes, because they've created the culture around the festival and they've created such an amazing and think of it, I really got to give them their props because it's in Houston, which is not like the metal mecca of the world. It's
that's a slight,
it's great. We love playing Houston. Everybody loves playing Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, but it's you don't think of it as this epicenter. No. But they created an epicenter. They made it metal mecca for a lot of people and made it a pilgrimage, and that's a beautiful thing because the more we get that, the less butt rock and radio rock. And don't get me wrong, I love me some butt rock and I love me some radio rock, but it's almost bit us in the ass too, because now Sonic Temple and Rockville they have Acid Bath and Cannibal Corpse and Converge and Napalm Death, and you're like, whoa, how is this happening? Like you used to have Crossfade and Theory of a Dead Man, and maybe they still do, maybe they still have them, but it felt like it used to be more radio rock, and now it's like deathcore. I mean, we're trying to get Peeling Flesh, and they're like, nope, we're going to Welcome to Rockville, and I'm like, what? But hey, more power to them, and I love to see the bands from the underground getting paid and getting on those big stages. I love to do those shows as well, and those shows have been super supportive to us. Like I have a jersey from Rockville that the Jaguars made us with the Hatebreed on the back, and we played the pre-party once with The Word Alive. And I was like, man, we're stuck on the pre-party, and it ended up being like 3,000 or 4,000 people going crazy, and it was so much fun. So you can have the best of both worlds. We just need to figure it out so that we can make sure our lineup is secure and is true to the old school spirit of Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Awesome. Now, last year's festival was also, coincided with the release of your Jasta For All album. How do you, if we look back at 1 year of the album, because I think it was like May 17 or something like that, the release was of that. So it's coming up now as well. How do you look back on that release? Because that was like such an interesting album that I know was very much a passion project. It was almost like, Jamey's love letter to the 80s. But, when an album comes out and you are also hosting a festival, I have a feeling you have a very limited time to really, really celebrate that or enjoy that. Like, there's some really cool stuff on there, and I know that like No Dream Is Free and They Set Us a Prey, those should be played live a lot. I know that you don't always have the opportunity to play those songs a lot. I play a lot of covers, obviously, when Jasta has shows. But how do you look back on that record? Because there's a lot of like what if scenarios on there. Like, it just made me like, oh, I wish like Zethro actually sang in a hardcore band in the 80s, like how do you look back on that album?
It's great, man. It's finding a new audience now too, which is crazy. I wish that I could have done bigger budget videos and done tours at the right time, but I'm just so grateful it saw the light of day and that I did it DIY, I did it my way. I own the master, and I just got additional distribution for it. I would have made different choices knowing what I know now about the algorithms and about censorship, because a lot of the topics on the album are obviously topics that are extremely censored. One of them being the first video, which is it's an anti it's a somewhat anti big pharma or big media song with I don't even want to say it on here, but it's got a word. It's got part of a word that is so censored that the video was instantly shadow banned on YouTube and then pushed. You know, it gets no boosting. You can't advertise for it. I thought about changing the title because Phil Demo's on the song. He ripped such an amazing solo, and the song gets a big reaction live. And we shot the video at Milwaukee Metal Fest. You live and you learn. We've seen it with Suicidal Tendencies, Terror, Hatebreed, especially the last 4 years. We were all shadow banned, deboosted, just for having those words in our names. Right. Meta has since lifted a lot of those restrictions. You know, if you looked at our analytics, especially in the Hatebreed Facebook, you would go, there's no way. I mean, we toured with Megadeth. We toured with Anthrax and Black Label Society. There's no way you can tell us we only got 10,000 more likes in 4-year period of time. But as soon as they lifted whatever that restrictive algorithm was and some of that, now it's 100,000 new likes, 200,000 new likes. So that stuff is real. Censorship is real. And I probably should have thought through my campaign differently and toured Europe and toured the States. But I think I can announce and give you the exclusive. I did confirm a tour for September where I'm going to be direct support to Life of Agony for a short tour. So that's going to be fun. And I'm working on an EP called For the Core. And it's going to be with hardcore singers and guest singers, because I did notice that by giving the attention to the thrash and the thrash metal, I did notice the hardcore guys were giving me a little bit of a hard time. The hardcore fans were feeling a little left out. So I'm hoping that once we get the new Hatebreed out, maybe I'll wait 6, 8, 12 months. And I really hope to collaborate on this Jasta For the Core EP with, I want to get Keith Buckley on a song. I want to get Scott Vogel on a song. I'd like to get Matt from Kublai Khan on a song. You know, he just did a song. I just did a song on Kublai Khan's record. But again, I'm talking about doing less. I think when I say less, I think a reasonable amount of work for the next 16 to 20 months is get the Hatebreed record out, get the 2026 Milwaukee Metal Fest lineup secured and get that on sale, and then get the Jasta For the Core EP out. It's just an EP, like 4 or 5 songs. It's not gonna.
I love how you're like saying this to like justify to yourself. Like, I'm not gonna be busy. I'm just gonna do a new album of like one of the biggest hardcore bands in history. I'm gonna do another EP with a bunch of guest vocals. I'm gonna do another festival. I'm gonna take it easy, is what I'm saying.
Well, the beauty of these projects, especially the Jasta For All, was that it was largely fan funded, and so I wasn't needing to go to a label and ask for things. And the fans really supported it. Everywhere I go, people show me their name in the liner notes and stuff. And so that was the best part of it, was just having that control. And I think that helps as well, because you then have the pressure to make it even better. And I know it took a long time and it was hard to coordinate the guests, but I do think, oh man, imagine if I did the big budget video with Chuck Billy, or I did the big budget video with Scott Ian for RMPC, which who knows, maybe we'll do. Maybe now that we're going to be together,
you'll have some free time next year, I think.
I'm like, Scott, just real quick, just run over in this corner. We'll put a green screen up. But yeah, we're repressing the vinyl. And we're going to do a gatefold version of it. And then we're figuring out what we're going to do with the CDs now that we have new distribution. We thought about maybe doing some sort of cool booklet with added liner notes and stuff. But yeah, it's all good problems to have. We just put out Hatebreed Perseverance on vinyl. That's going to be shipping in June. And that was another real labor of love, but a great thing to do, because I think for artists to license their own records, especially artists who have catalog on major labels,
Right.
It's important to not only, keep your catalog out there and keep the legacy and the history out there, but create a new legacy and a new history. And so what I've noticed is, just since we put those pre-orders up, everyone is also buying the Jasta vinyl and other things on vinyl collectors, and they might have not seen those ads or seen those releases being released, because, like I was saying before, you have to be able to cut through these algorithms, and you have to have marketing, and you have to have a plan. And so now I'm learning as we go.
There you go. While we're on this, you say you want to do more with guest vocals, and obviously there had some really cool collaborations on the Jasta album. I wanted to ask you, there's no guest singer listed for No Dream Is Free. Is that all you singing?
Yeah. And that song was not
that has like plagued me forever. I was like, there's so many different vocal styles there, and it's like, that sounds like other people, and I was like, I wanted to ask you that, but it's all you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's another regret of mine. I used to say, "Oh, I got no regrets." Now I'm like, I'm going back on that. I'm going, "Oh man, I have all these regrets." One of my regrets is not trying all those different vocal tones and showing the process, and showing other people, like, look, it takes work, it takes time, it takes warm-ups, cool downs, trills, making silly faces and doing all this stuff. And if I want to submit to another artist, I kind of got to get in that mindset, and I have to try to emulate what the other artists are doing. And I think what I'm going to start doing also is, on my Patreon, I might release the demos. Like, okay, here's me singing the songs that Dee Snider, sang on his record. Here's me doing the demos of the Corpse Grinder, death metal vocals for his record. If ever I did a demo to doing examples. But because Lost Chapters 1 and Lost Chapters 2, most of those songs were meant for other artists. So I call them these collections of, lost chapters, lost parts of my life where I wanted to try other styles, because not because I felt limited by Hatebreed, but just because I had this itch that I needed to scratch stylistically. But with No Dream Is Free, and with a couple of those later songs deep into the record, I thought, if I don't use them, maybe Ripper will put them on his album, or maybe D will do a third album, put them on his album, or maybe there was another singer who I was courting to do a project. Actually, there was two. One is a female singer, a classic rock singer who was interested in doing metal and wanted to do something very metal. And who knows, that might still work out, but I don't have the time right now. But I thought, okay, this still is thrash. It still fits. So I can put it on the Jasta record. And I think in the sequencing where we put it, it works. But it was really fun, because I go, oh wow, I can hit these notes. Yeah. I probably can't do it to that degree live, but Nick and I would work on it, and I would say, I don't want to auto-tune these. I want to get the best take possible. And some of the ones, like on They See Us As Prey, what we would do is if Charlie did backups, or if I did a harmony or a backup that was slightly out, we would tune the backup, and then I would sing to the backup. But I don't use in-ear monitors live. I think I'm going to, if I want to incorporate all those songs and I want them to be passable, I'm definitely going to need to get in-ears.
Right.
But yeah, I don't ever want to be one of these, we can't play it because we can't do it, guys. I always want to try.
Chemical control, medical unfortunity, suicidality, weaponized.
Is there a possibility in, given all the free time you have, to set up a 50th show where we get to just have you cherry pick from all these projects and all these bands that you've worked, and all these artists you've written for? That would be a really cool thing to have you play some of those D. Snyder songs and Ripper songs and your Jasta songs and just, just like the live anthology, if you will. Is that, you must be thinking already about your 50th birthday at this point. Like,
honestly, I wasn't. It could be cool, especially if we did it as maybe as like a Thrash Thursday type of thing, because we have this residency going on. We're doing a show once a month this year, and with all different guests. I'm going there tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to Jersey, and we have Bobby Blitz from Overkill coming out. So that could be cool. Yeah, like especially if D was around and I could fly him out, or if he was going to be. If he was going to be East Coast, because he has been East Coast, he's a North Carolina guy now, and that would be amazing. I guess not this year. I don't want to think too far ahead into the future, because it does kind of rob you of the now, right, which is so great. And I've been telling everybody that. Wait till you come to Milwaukee. Wait till you have the best weekend ever. Even though that's just a couple weeks in the future, it does still feel a little ways off to me. So I can enjoy this time being at home. We just had, we adopted 2 more cats. I'm like a animal shelter over here. My daughter's 26, so I really enjoy. Yesterday, she helped us. We're preparing for all these pre-orders and for all these merch reorders, and she helped us. She came and helped us folded merch and counted merch and stuff, and it was nice. It was like, okay, this is the calm before the storm,
right?
Because we're going out in June and we're going out in July. That's about to get announced, and I know you're going to think I'm absolutely crazy, but I'm taking over or partially. Helping with taking over Summer Slaughter. We're bringing that back, and Hatebreed's headlining, so that's insane too.
That's still 2025. You said you're going to take it easy in 2026, so this is also 2025. Yes. So you're not, so you're true to yourself. You're true to
June, July, August is slammed, but it's good. It's good problems to have. And we're taking Summer Slaughter global. We're going to take it to Europe. We're going to take it to Australia. We're going to take it to South America. So I'm really excited to be working with Ash and Sumerian on that, and Sound Talent. Tim put together a great lineup that's going to be announced soon. And after last year, Summer Slaughter kind of, I think the fans were kind of divided on it. So we're taking it in a new direction, and I think people are going to be really excited about it. And this is going to be a great way for us to continue the tradition like we've been doing with Milwaukee Metal Fest, which is for the last 3 years, which is being like this compass and pointing people to bands they might have not heard of that might be their favorite band that they don't know yet. And hopefully the headliners of tomorrow. Because if you look at, say, like Machine Head, Rob was watching Gates to Hell and he goes, all right, they're on my tour. Yeah. So we made that happen with Milwaukee Metal Fest, and we made that happen with other tours as well. So we're going to try to do that, and it's looking very good. Like we're going to do that with Summer Slaughter. Awesome. In July. It's just 15 or 16 shows, I think. Just, we're not taking it. I know people are going to be mad. We're not going to Canada. Oh, no, we might be going to 1 or 2 shows in Canada. Don't quote me on that yet. But if not this year, definitely.
We'll keep our eyes open. Luckily, more than ever, our countries get along so well. So travel back and forth will be no issue.
Oh, man.
All right, so let's
stay positive with that situation.
Let's in the spirit of staying positive, let's wrap up with a serious question, though, because I think it's interesting and it's important. You work with so many people, different people that are all over. You've worked with people on different sides of the political spectrum as well, and from conversations, not just with yourself, but interviewing other band members and just having chats with your band members as well at shows in Europe and in Toronto. Hatebreed itself has been a collection of people with different views, and then there's been obviously different people in the band and whatever, and people with views come in and out and whatnot. Somehow in this ridiculously politicized world, because we are in a politicized world, and it seems like people are more tribalistic than ever before, and I know that you'll applaud less censorship, but I'm sure that you'll also be at the same time, as we see less censorship in certain platforms, we're seeing in the States environmental policies being taken away, and I know those are things that are really important to you. there's always stuff going on. Somehow, Hatebreed seems to have been not just a band, but also a community of fans around it, where people seem to be okay to work with people that have vastly different views and to get along or at least have a good time together. What's that like? And it's something we could use a little bit more of that Hatebreed mentality maybe in the, everywhere in the world. It's not just an American thing, politics are divisive everywhere in the world. What's your takeaway on that? Like, how has a band like Hatebreed been able to do that? Being very vocal about certain things, about very different things, being able to work with people. I mean, you've worked with many people that have been in Exodus. Exodus is another example of that. There are people that are at the extreme ends of the political scale there, but 40 years later, they're still making kick-ass music. What's your take on that? Because it's important.
My take is that everyone's connected. We're more connected than we believe we are. I think we've been conditioned, especially in the States since the 80s and 90s, we've been conditioned to, and not just by the media, but maybe the school systems and maybe there's other factors that have gone into this division and this separation. And it felt like it was the usual the usual culprits. It's not just the politicians or just the major media corporations or just the big food or big pharma, but we are seeing, just like we saw in the 60s and the 70s, that there were unjust wars, there were companies that lied, there were lobbies that lied, and they were proven. This is not tinfoil hat stuff. It was proven, and it's without a doubt. People went to trial. Juries of peers proved these things, and these companies had to do millions of dollars in payouts to the victims. But also, when you bring it up from a band standpoint, right? Like, Hatebreed's message has always been to uplift the individual, because you can't help your family and your friends if you can't help yourself, right? You have to help yourself first, and you have to. I think everybody has a little hypocrite in you, and that's okay. But when you're constantly making an effort to learn about these things that are important to you, one person can actually make a change. But we are told that that's not possible, because that could threaten billions and billions of dollars of profit at the highest levels, right? And we've seen the little guy get crushed. We've seen what happens to people who challenge whatever system it may be, whether it was Pearl Jam with who or whatever. Like, we've seen this happen, and it creates a fear, right? It creates it didn't work for them, I can't work for me. But there are times when one person does light that flame that lights a million, and it can make positive change. But fighting people online is not going to change anything, right?
No.
And Ripper, if you look at Ripper, here's somebody, he was demonetized, his PayPal for a post that was like very innocuous years ago, and he's since been less vocal, not because he was demonetized, but just because he's changed his opinion on a lot of things. And he's on maybe the opposite spectrum of, say, D or Sebastian Bach, but when you somehow meet in the center on a lot of topics and a lot of issues, and we're more connected than we know, and we're more affected by these things than we know. Like, I was talking to my father the other day, and my father was in Vietnam. My father was exposed to Agent Orange. My family has been affected by Agent Orange poisoning because it's literally in your genetics now. And this is a product that was made to kill people and hurt our own troops. And this is proven. This is not tinfoil hat stuff. This is not crazy stuff. This is Monsanto paid out. I mean, hundreds of thousands of kids that got spinal bifida and worse. But when you challenge someone's worldview and they want to think like, oh, they wouldn't do that to us. They wouldn't put glyphosate in our food and give us cancer. Right, because you're a good person and you wouldn't do that to someone else. Yeah. And so those types of people that are good people that don't believe this stuff because it challenges their worldview and can break their identity to a certain extent. I understand it's hard. It had to happen to me too. I was crushed when I would learn about these things and you go, oh my God, this is real. Like, how could they do this? They sold this dude into a war that was completely unjust. And these guys, I mean, you can go watch the videos. They were like, it was a draft. They drafted these guys. People were shook. They were watching the numbers be called, the birthdays be called. They're going to have to go to a foreign country to kill people who did nothing to them. But that's in some people's mind who love the establishment and love what they think is needed to keep this, whatever we want to call it, democracy. They were sold a lie. Huh. And it's hard for them to admit that even now, 40, 50 years later, it's hard. You can see people that are like, no, it's a nuanced subject and this and that. And they don't want to look. They don't have time. They're trying to just pay their bills and buy eggs. They don't have time to look up the Gulf of Tonkin or they don't have time to look up these things and research it and read the books and listen to the lectures and read the articles. So I get it. So I think you need to treat people as individuals. You need to approach them with love and with honesty. And you also have to be a compass between the two. So, I mean, I got shredded on Instagram when I had Nugent on my podcast. And I said, hey, let's get a big show together with Bach, the Nuge, D, hash it out, work it out. People also hate the mediators and they hate the people who they think are playing both sides. But the world needs the mediators. The world needs level-headed people that can be more balanced and not be so emotionally connected to certain issues and certain topics, because if you're that emotionally connected to it, you can be manipulated and you can really not see the forest through the trees. And so, you know, the Trumpers that want to go, oh no, it's fine. Well, look at your 401k. It's not fine. You voted for this and now you're suffering for it. And at the same token, the people that are like, no, Biden's he's the pinnacle of mental acuity. No, he's not. So you have to see this both ways. They're going lesser of two evils and all this stuff. And you're like, no, the truth is somewhere in the middle and everyone is connected. As much as we don't want to think about that, we're all whatever. I don't care what religion you subscribe to. I don't care what socioeconomic background you're from. We're all in this together. As cheesy and cliche as that sounds, if you don't want to go full nihilist, full black pill, fuck everything, we're not here for a reason. If you want to do that, I can't change your mind. I'm trying to not go that route.
Vision's clear, my instincts strong. I am the vicious one. Inclination to destroy.
We've done quite a roller coaster journey on this conversation, and we touched on a lot of different things. But what we take away from this is that, first of all, everybody is connected with everybody. There are many ways, even if you have different viewpoints on certain things, that you can connect with people. And people should be connecting at the Milwaukee Festival for that. We're just a few tickets away, guys, of making Jamey's 2026 even crazier. So let's all enable here the bad stuff. Let's make sure that you're super, super busy. Jamey, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are with all the stuff that's coming up. Thank you for sharing so much information with us. Really appreciate it. Hope the
My
festival
pleasure.
is a blast. And I can't wait to I'll be there next year for the festival for sure. And looking forward to that. But I have a feeling I'm going to see you on the stage a few times before that festival.
It's quite possible, yeah. And thank you for helping amplify the music and the message. I hope people will come check it out. And if not, if you can't make it, if I could be so bold as to just plug martyrstore.net, we're doing a great thing with the fan funding and fans contributing to all these amazing records. And if you're interested in any of the catalog, we're right about to start the pre-order for Kirk Windstein's solo album, second solo album, Ethereal Waves. And we have the Hatebreed Perseverance vinyl that's up there, and of course all the Jasta records, D. Snyder, Corpse Grinder, Ripper, and Many Eyes, which is Keith Buckley from Every Time I Die, his new band, and that was executive produced by yours truly. So it's a lot, but if you love music as much as we do and you want to support it, and you know that there's a very few middlemen, there's very few hands in the pies, it's going right to the artists and right back into the label and the festival and everything else. So we appreciate the support.
There you go. Awesome. Jamey, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.